Yay. Thanks for the reminder, Kristen. And because I was going to turn it on, but then I started introducing and I got distracted. So my name is Stacy Klein. I'm with Orange County Q, and I'm going to be your moderator in the chat today while the amazing Ben Cogswell shares out about how K-2 can too and his amazing Kinder Rockets. I've got the whole Kinder Rockets crew on my computer, and I'm so excited to be moderating today. Let us know if there's any, please introduce yourself in the chat, where you're from, what you teach, and share your Twitter handle. Yay, take it away, Ben.
All right, how's everybody doing today? I'm just kind of getting my setup still, you know, tweaking those last minute screen shares here. So forgive me if I'm multitasking. It's good to see everybody. I see some familiar faces in there, and yeah. Sorry, I'm almost ready. Okay, here we go. How's everybody doing today? If you guys like Stacy was saying, get your fingers warmed up, say hi in the chat. It's nice to see some familiar faces in there, people that I've seen before at other Q conferences. Sam and Vicky and Terry and Brian. So many awesome people in here. So thanks for being here again. Say hi in the chat. Thank you guys for those of you that have your cameras on. I totally get it. It's like in the morning time, right? And I might not be camera ready. And you can hear my COVID puppy, barking in the background. Still working on that, but you know, we're all work in progress right now. So how am I doing? Is my audio coming through okay? You guys can see my screen so far? Awesome. Thank you so much. And of course, before I get started, make sure you have your cup of coffee, your cup of tea, your water, you know, your protein shake, whatever you got. I know a lot of us are already connected on Twitter, but one thing I always find is helpful is you know, have that connection if you are on Twitter. If you're other social media is great too. That's my favorite, Twitter as far as connecting. But I think many of us are already connected. So with that, are you guys ready to jump in? I'll kind of I know it's kind of, I'll kind of off to a slow start here. As you can see, I'm tripping over my words a little bit as I'm still kind of waking up. A little more coffee here, but we'll be good. So in this session, if you have, I know I have some people that like sketchnoting. For this section, I'm actually going to get as a piece of paper here. So if you want to have a piece of paper, we're not going to do a ton on the paper, but we are going to do just a little bit of drawing. And I got my markers, by the way, as I do. And I'm sure many of you, if you're in a teaching space and maybe an elementary teacher, you probably have this within reach. If you don't have these, it's okay. But you can tell like I'm a kindergarten teacher because I'm even going to be so specific as telling you I'm going to get out these two markers right here. I'm going to get my red and my blue and my black. All right. If you don't have those, it's all good. But that's what I'm going to use because this session is about blending. Right. And it would not be, I feel like I couldn't do a session on blending if you were just staring at a screen and not doing anything off the screen. So hold on one moment. I'm going to see if I can get somebody to help with this barking puppy here.
And Ben, don't worry, the dog isn't that loud. I mean, it's
okay.
Because of your gain, like you're explaining on your microphone, it's
awesome.
Very light.
Very good. I can even turn it down. Let's see if that's even better. All right. So here we go. Great to see everybody. It's nice to see where you're from too. I am up here. Obviously you guys are down in Southern California. I am in Salinas. You guys know where Salinas is? Salad bowl capital of the world. And yeah, if you look on your bag of spinach or lettuce, you might see Salinas on there. I was a sixth grade teacher. I've been teaching here in the same district. I was a sixth grade teacher for 7 years, and I just kind of fell into a technology coach position, as some of you know. And I did that for about 4 years, and I really loved that position, but I really just missed the classroom. And so now I guess this is my 3rd year back in the classroom, or I guess not in the classroom, depending upon, you know, how you spin that. But yeah, so I've been a kindergarten teacher for these last 3 years, and it's been amazing. And people will ask me, they're like I've been asked this, you were a 6th grade teacher, were you like being punished when you went back to kindergarten? And I'm like, you know, I wanted to go back to kindergarten for a lot of different reasons. You know, my kids that you may or may not hear in the background, which you'll see up here, and I think maybe one of these pictures here I'll go for a little bit. I got young kids at that age. I just love that age. It's a fun age, and just also like honestly, a lot of it was just this challenge for me of like people saying like kindergartners should not be using technology. Well, they're saying that less this year, but you know, kindergartners should not be using technology in their classroom. It's not developmentally appropriate, right? Like, you know, they need to like write and glue and cut. You know what my answer to that is? Yes, they need to write and they need to glue and they need to cut and they need to color and they need to paint and they do all of those things, but they also need to use the technology, right? And so, kind of jumping back here, these are my Kinder Rockets, and I feel like kind of they just really have taken off a little bit more in since distance learning has started. But these are my this year's Kinder Rockets. These are this year's kindergartners, and this is actually pictures from the second day of class. We were drawing a, what else would we draw as a Kinder Rocket, or maybe this is the first day of class. On the first day of class, well, of course we draw a rocket, right? Because we're the Kinder Rockets. And this is also my other team on the Kinder Rockets. A little bit about me, right? If you see any of my stuff, I do have a Facebook page. And I will, if Stacy can grab it, or if not, I will pop it in here when I get a breather.
No, I got it. Oh, the Facebook page, you bet.
Yes.
I've got your website up, but yeah, I'll get that.
Yes, I know you know where that is. Yeah, so that's another thing you can check out, and just kind of how the whole thing has evolved. I'm also going to put this up every once in a while for pausing and processing, and I hope I got all those typed correctly. I think I did. But as many of you know, I think there's so many negative things that we hear about social media, right? But so many of you in this room, right, I connect with on social media on a weekly basis, right? And we're sharing amazing things. So I just really encourage you to share, you know, whatever amazing learnings, whether it's in this session, whether it's in the opening session. It's always good to share those positive things, I think, as we're moving forward. So, and this also gives me a chance to take a sip of my coffee, and maybe gives you a chance to do that as well. This is a small group, which I really love. So I hope that you guys feel comfortable asking questions. If you want to like raise your hand and unmute, I don't mind pausing, because again, there's 17 people in here, and so that's awesome. And so we can really just hopefully answer all of those questions that you guys may have. All right. So I like to also check in every once in a while before we move on, just with the nice thumbs up. So again, thanks for, if you have your camera on, that's why you'll be my thumbs up crew. Or if you have your emoji, right, you can do the reaction. You can do that too. All right.
If anybody needs a groovy Star Trek Zoom background, just go on my Twitter. I put the Star Trek released a bunch this year, so grab one.
Such a great theme. Yes, it's always fun. It's always fun. And it definitely fits with my Kinder Rockets, right? How could the Kinder Rockets not come and present at a theme that involved space? All right, so here's some big ideas for today, and you're going to kind of see these spiral, and I'm going to go inside the deck, but I also kind of want to just show you some examples from my classroom now and what that looks like in these times. So there's 3 big ideas today, and I'm going to, of course, leave you I want you to wonder and notice about these images in here. All right, what do you wonder, what do you notice, or what do I wonder, what do I notice? I'm just going to give you some processing time. There's 3 of them. So we got the first one, right? We got boxing gloves. We got 2 different colors. They're kind of banging with each other. We got the second one here. It looks like kind of like some kind of a shape, maybe a cube. And the third one, we got mountains. Each of them have 2 different colors, right? Each of them, we're represented with 2 different things. So this is the first big idea, this idea of digital versus analog. And this is actually where I'm just going to pause for a second, and I'm going to, as smoothly as I can, change my screen share to my document camera here. All right. So this is my document camera. I use an IPEVO, by the way, and I use this IPEVO software.
I'm on a conference today.
And so... Thank you. Sorry about that. So I really like this. This software is actually pretty slick. I can put my picture here, and maybe I'll get my SnapCam going in here in the bottom. It has this line reader thing. Anyways, it's pretty cool. So we're gonna get, of course, our markers out. And if you want to just,
that line reader is amazing, Ben. I've never seen that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is really cool. It's nice because you can do stop motion with this. I can actually annotate on the screen itself. I can freeze. It's pretty cool. So this is right blending in. It's pretty much blending in a K-2 classroom, right? Here's one of the biggest thing I found. I have 4 kids at home, and I watch my kids at home all the time in their distance learning, and I always pay attention. I'm also really big. I think a lot of my kindergartners, they have their cameras on, right? So I'm always watching and thinking about what the kids are doing on the other side of the screen. I feel like sometimes, especially when we started doing this in the beginning, we did a lot of talking because like in the classroom, we'd have kindergartners share or first graders share, or kids share with each other, right? If you're in Zoom, you can still share with breakout rooms, right? But I'm in Google Meet, we don't have any breakout rooms. So there's not necessarily a whole lot of room, for sharing, right? For kids sharing like with each other, right? Oh, talk to your partner. We can't do that. The other thing is, of course, when kids start sharing, right, it could turn into this long stream of sharing. Right. So I feel like what ended up happening is teachers were talking a lot and kids were doing what? Kids were just sitting there on the other side of the screen. Right. And last year, I started watching one of my own kids. He'd sit there on his Chromebook like this, right? As his teacher was talking, because how do we do this? We're figuring out. So I bring the document camera out because the biggest thing, the document camera, if you don't have a document camera, like this is the biggest tool I feel like we can give teachers, even if it's just your phone, right, is a document camera, because it allows me to get the kids doing something on the other side of the screen, right? How do you teach writing, or how do you teach some of these skills digitally when the kids are at home with the document camera, right? They can't just be sitting there. And this is a whole tangent I have anyways, but whatever we can do to get them doing something, whether it's writing, whether it's drawing, something on the other side of the screen, it engages their brain. And I find that they're a lot more productive where they're learning. So here we got our blending in a K-2 classroom. And if you guys remember, we had some boxing gloves on the front. The other thing that I really love about my drawing, remember I was talking about like, this looks more like a fish. So maybe I put that social part. How do we get kids to stop sharing? Well, I've noticed once I start drawing like this, it kind of slows down the classroom. And then I can kind of have more of a conversation with the kids. Like, oh, what color are you using? What are you doing with that? How are you drawing it? Right? So anyways, these are my boxing gloves here. How do they look? All right. So this is the first thing. I'm going to keep this out. And this is this whole idea that a lot of times we are framing digital, analog versus digital. I'm going to tell a little bit more about that, but I just wanted to get that. The other thing is I think a lot of us know, right? What does the brain research say about kids putting like that pen to paper? Is that important? Yes. Is that going to make more connections in the brain? Yes, right? Even if they're just copying, whatever they're doing, whatever we can do to get them engaged. Even with the older kids, like we think about sketchnoting, could they still take Cornell notes if we're having like a lecture or we're doing it more like that style? Yeah, right? But just making sure we're getting them to do something on the other side of the screen, right? And that's why I encourage you, if you have your paper, if not, you can sketchnote or you can just watch. All right, we're going to go back here. So far, before I move on, any comments that anybody wants to share? Again, this is a smaller group, so I think I did my whole screen there. Sorry.
Yeah, Ben, I liked what you were saying about the act of drawing. It's like the act of producing music produces more synapses. So it's awesome to listen to classical music. Everybody was, playing classical music when they were pregnant or something, but it's really important for them to play music. And when they play music, it takes that stratospherically on that. Same with the art. Awesome comment.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Stacy. All right. So let's start out. What do I mean more about digital versus analog? Well, I feel like a lot of times digital versus analog, right? All right. Are you an email person or do you like sending mail? Which one, right? Oh, I love letters because it's nice to receive them. Well, it is. I love email. It's just so efficient, right? I can just get it done quickly. Or do you like listening to books like Audible, right? Or are you like a paper person? Do you like just sitting there with your book, right, in a nice comfy chair? Like the smell and feel of a book, it can't be replaced. What about like calendar? Are you like a calendar person or do you like to write your stuff down, right? You got to have that paper calendar. Well, I'm a this person. I'm a that person. this whole thing. We got to get away from this, right? We have to get away from this because honestly, like, this is what it's about. I don't know about you. I love my calendar on my phone. I love it. But do I still write stuff down on sticky notes and post them over in front of my computer screen? Yes. Is it good to be able to have both of those things? Yes. Right. Sometimes I love when I'm walking, listening to books. I still love sometimes just getting a book out. Right. I love being able to use my Kindle because I can keep like 1,000,000 books on there. But my point is there's a time and a place for both. These are skills that kids need. That kids need both of them. So we're going to look at a few examples here, right? Digital versus analog. So by the way, these are all available at coachben.org. I think I just published this. This should be on the top of the presentations page here. And you can see all of these seesaw activities should be linked, by the way. But anyway, so what do you see here? When you look at this, what do you see in these examples? If you want to turn on your mic, great. If you want to put something in the chat, great. If you just want to listen, that's fine too. What do you see here?
Yay, don't be shy, unmute.
It's okay. You know, here's the thing I found though, Stacy, is, and I say this during, if you've been in another session with me, I find, especially with adults, wait time is ridiculously long. We got to give people ridiculously long amounts of wait time. Like in the class, it's like 5 to 10 seconds, right? But here, think about on top of those 5 to 10 seconds, what do people need to do? They need to unmute or they need to mute, right? They need to type something. And so for me, right, I just sit here and that's why I say, like, I'll ask a question. I just give people, because I already, like Gail, obviously, right, type some, and sometimes it just needs a little more time. So that's something else to think about as well. But it's true. So what do we see here? Sensory learning, right? Different ways for students to show knowledge. So what do I see? As a primary teacher, well, I see, a kindergarten teacher, I see sentences, evidence of learning, right? I see sentences. I see 4 parts to a sentence. What are the 4 parts of the sentence that I might be looking for? A capital letter. Do I see a capital letter on the left? Yes. Capital letter on the right? Yes. Do I see finger spaces? Yes, I see finger spaces. By the way, it's called the finger space bar if you're in kindergarten, okay? Finger space bar, all right? Do I see a punctuation at the end? Yes. And do I see pretty letters? Well, obviously when you type, it's usually pretty letters, but you know, they're in both of them, right? I see it in both. This is the same student, by the way. And this is my student. This was last year before we went, like right when we went there. So this was like one of her last writing assignments face-to-face and one of her first writing assignments on the computer. I can tell you that mom was helping with that writing assignment, right, on the left, to be very honest. But you know, you can see, right? You can still see those things. All right, what about this one? What do we see here? Same kind of thing, right? On the right, what do you think? What skill are we doing here? Counting to patterns. Counting to 100. You got it, Sam. Yeah, counting to 100. So this was like on hundreds day, right? And so they were doing their 10 frames, right? This student, interesting. He was kind of doing some patterns, right? He was doing his 10 frames and he was counting as he was doing his 10 frames, right? On the right. That same day, we got out their seesaw and they had this kind of hundreds, you know, this hundreds frame. And then on the right, you can't see it here, but they had to actually drag the 10s in to the correct place. Yeah, they're color coded for a little scaffolding. And then what the students do to actually count to 100 and touch all the dots, right? So groups of 10, right? Groups of 10, counting to 100 by 10, counting to 100 by 1. Do you see it in both? Do you see evidence of learning in both? Are those both really good? You know, those are both good ways to measure that. Wouldn't you agree? Now, here's the greatest thing. Like, I just find, like, it's another, like, if I say kids, like, do this tactile activity and then getting to 100 and then do the same tactile activity, the second tactile activity, whatever, is not going to be as engaging. But if I change the medium up, I find it's more engaging for the kids. They're able to kind of get more repetition. Here's honestly one of my favorite ones. Yeah, I see. Thanks, Sam. I see some of my favorite things here, and coding, right? Even with coding, digital and analog, and honestly, when I'm teaching codings, I don't know if you're familiar with those B-bots. I love those B-bots. Yeah, I love them. If you're not familiar with the B-bots, they actually you can code, you push all the buttons on the back of the B-bot, and I just honestly prefer the B-bots for coding for the younger kids, even more so than the computers, although we do both, and I'm always like, Sam, I'm always thinking about you and how I can start doing even more of that. And so thank you for all you have done. But anyways, the B-bots, right? What are the kids doing on the right? They're coding, and I love the B-bots with the shapes mat. They're like, I got to get to the blue triangle to the red square, and we got to get through. There's so much language that they're using in that, so much turn taking. So yeah, and it just like they did both, right? And encourage them. They can see both. They see the patterns in both. They see the sequencing in both, right? It's just reinforcing it. So it's all about digital and analog, right? We have to get these kids able to do both. I'm gonna kind of skip through a few of my slides because I also want to have some time to look at some of these examples now, right? So again, what does this look like now? Well, it's harder to do, but it can be done. And we'll talk about it. Some of it is just simply like, you know, the fact that, hey, even though they're looking at me on a screen, at least I can get them writing, right? I can get them drawing. I can do them something, right? But also like, here's an example of kind of how I even tried to do it in a lesson. Look, in this seesaw lesson, I did an analog instructional video, right? And then they're doing the task digitally. So what does this look like? Well, this is my whiteboard. It's these traditional magnetic letters. I got my little, last year, this guy was a preschooler. This year, he's a kindergartner, and literally his desk is right around the corner. I could give him a high five over here. And so we did the instructional video there. We just did it like that because I feel like kids still need to see us, right? I can't just do everything on a screen. And it's way more engaging if I can get a kid in there for other kids. And then on the right, that's the seesaw activity they did, right? They're rearranging the letters, ABC order, right? I flipped up some of the P's, Q's on them, like some of the tricky letters. And so again, trying to get that digital and the analog component. So the first things that right now, going back to it, the first big idea, what was the first big idea we have, right? It's not about digital versus analog, right? It's about digital and analog. How do the two support each other? I saw it was awesome. I try not to get too distracted in the chat because I find sometimes I let it distract me too much, and then I just go on and fall on these crazy tangents. So now this is the time I can pause. You guys can add anything. It's good for me to go back to the chat. Yeah.
Yay. And Ben, it's fantastic. Everybody's really engaged, and so I'm like chatting with everybody in the chat, trying to acknowledge everything. This is wonderful.
Yeah, I love this. Honestly, I just love those B-bots. Yeah, I did a donor's choose for some B-bots. I was able to get some of my B-bots through a donor's choose. After I got some, my site was able to get some more. But sometimes like all it takes is if you don't have those, right, then you do that donor's choose project. And sometimes if administration just sees one or two and sees how you're using them, that can also be that. I like the Ozobots. Yeah, Ozobots are really cool. I've been wanting to use those more with my kindergartners as well, but I feel like because I've had the B-bots, right? But yeah, like I've thought about those as well because I know there's some cool things you can do. So
yeah, I was talking to Vicky in the chat that it's hard because I'm all STEAM. I'm robotics and coding, and to learn how to do that, I watch magical people like you, how you do a lot of your stuff with your document camera, and then I do have a whole bunch of Ozobots. So I'm going to check them out in waves. So they'll go out in a little baggie. They can use them for 2 weeks, bring them home, put them out in the sun for a day, and then, you know, wipe them down and hand them out to the next group. Going to see how that works.
no, that's cool. I really love like the things like that some people are doing, getting them home. So no, that's great. Thank you for sharing. All right, so we got our big ideas for today. The first one, and I always say this when I do this, I got to change it, right? The boxing gloves that has it. It's not about digital versus analog. It's about this, right? And all my students, they love making the little heart, right? Oh, look, teacher, I can see your eyes, right? Sorry. And then we have this one. What's the second one? What do we think this second one is? All right, the second one is going to be this idea of three-dimensional tasks. All right, and we're going to obviously explain that a little bit. I'm going to go back over here to my document camera. And I'm always asking, hey, everybody, thumbs up if you guys can see my screen change, because sometimes, you know, technology doesn't work. So I feel like I always got to do that. Oops. All right. So the second one we have, I'm going to do my best to do a cube right here. I try to do at least a little bit of drawing in my class every day, even if it's just 5 minutes. Again, because I also feel like there's a lot of language we could develop as we're doing this, right? Oh, look, I'm drawing this shape. I'm drawing a cube. I need to draw a line. It's a vertical line, you know, and then I'm going to do a horizontal line. I'm drawing 2 of these circles here. Look, I can count 1, 2. Just so much of a language that we can build through there. And again, just trying to hit some different modalities and engage the kids. So we got our cube there. And this is this whole idea of three. I'm just going to put 3D for three-dimensional tasks. That's what I mean. I do a lot of for your younger grade teachers. I mean, there's so much in just even this word, all this phonics right here. You know, sorry, I don't have my kindergarten teaching handwriting today, so I apologize. It's more of my 6th grade teaching handwriting. But you know, just like even every time breaking these words apart. What sound do I hear at the beginning? We're going to write the word task. Even if it's just writing one word, right? I can do so much. Asks. And that's a good microphone, could go a long way. So just all of this, right? Break it, doing it's just mashing it all together, if you will. I can't teach math, and I can't do this segment of math, this language of language arts. I really have to do my best to overlap it as much as I can. And that's why I feel like in drawing and in writing, right, drawing, there's a lot of math in drawing. If you think about it, circles, counting, how many raindrops am I drawing? Well, I'm going to draw 10 raindrops. Let's count them to make sure we drew 10, right? There's just so much that you can do in that. And so just as I kind of keep going, some things that I've learned from my distance learning as well. All right, so this is this whole idea of three-dimensional tasks. You guys ready for this next one? Before I get in, I gotta just like to have my little, you know. All right. So let's take a look. What do we see here? Right, this first one, we just see a kid at a computer, right? The second one, we see a kid at a computer. What do they have? They have a book, right? They have a pencil, paper. And so I was at the staff meeting, and many of you maybe have been at a similar staff meeting where we were looking at the task for the SBAC, right? Our national test. And we were looking at particularly we were looking at a math task, and we were in teams, and we're pulling apart this 6th grade math task. And as we were doing this, I looked around and I kind of made this observation, right? I had pulled out a piece of paper. None of my other colleagues had actually pulled out a piece of paper. For me, I can't do math. I have to have paper. Would you guys agree? Math is something that you need to write down. I mean, I just have a strong feeling about that, as you can see, right? And so, it's just this whole thing, right? We have to, when we're doing this, and it's the same thing getting the document camera out. How do we kind of make sure kids have these skills? Because it's a skill, just like it's a skill to be able to have one tab over here and one tab over here. Sometimes it's better actually, instead of going through all these tabs, of just writing stuff down. And the longer I teach, the more I notice that, right? Like, okay, I need to write some observations about my students. Well, I print out my class list and I just do it over here because it's easier than instead of having to bring up another tab, find another sheet, put it in the sheet, right? I just have my paper over here. Or even just things like this, honestly, like, you know, like, hey guys, remember to record it and CC on your microphone. It's just such a different thing. I'm just holding up a piece of paper, right? I'm just pointing to it, right? These are honestly some of my most useful tools in the classroom, like this, right? Hey, your microphone's off, right? Your microphone's on. Remember, if you're not in a quiet space, you need to have this. Juliana, when you're at your babysitters, you need to have this on. Diego, you're in a quiet space. You can have this on, right? Because I'm really big. Like I could show you this presentation at the pausing point. I really believe and that we just shouldn't have kids just automatically put their microphone on mute. Because I just feel like forcing kids to always be mute, it just equals disengagement. So we have a lot of conversations if you're in a quiet space, you can have your microphone on, because then I can have a lot more of a conversation with kids in the classroom. As we're drawing, I can actually have a natural conversation rather than being like, oh, hey, you know, Stacy, could you turn on your microphone and answer this question? It disrupts the conversation. Where if Stacy's in a quiet space, I can just look, oh, Stacy's microphone. Hey, Stacy, what color are you using?
Blue.
Blue? Okay, why did you choose blue?
It's my favorite color.
It's much more of a natural conversation, and I can have it much more that. So we have a lot of conversations, and like I have one student that I'm working with right now because she just had her babysitter. She was super quiet, but she's all of a sudden want to talk a lot more, which is great. But she's had her babysitters, and her babysitter's just super loud, so I almost can't hear. So that's just working with her as a student and just getting her even better at this, right? It's just those routines. Anyways, there's my tangent. So, you know what the most magical thing on your computer is? The most magical tool you have on your computer. What do you think it is for $5 million? It's not the unicorn tool. There's one of them. Araceli. Yeah, these two things. In my opinion, the most magical thing you have on your computer is your camera and your microphone. I just feel like if I would have been elementary school and you and my like, I can imagine, think about like that's when if somebody would have said, here's a camera, a video camera that you can take home, give a video camera to all your students. They can take pictures, they can film all these things. Think about how magical that would be like back before we had these things, right? I mean, that would have just been mind blowing. And so now we have these capabilities, right? And so somebody asked me one time, well, Ben, what's the difference between analog and three-dimensional? Analog is being able to use both. I think there's a time sometimes where you just do a task on paper, and sometimes you just do the task on the computer, or sometimes you do A and then B. But I also like this whole idea of being able to kind of overlap them, if you will. So if you can see this, this is my student Moises, who is super cute. This is my student from last year, obviously, in the classroom. I have his sister this year, so I still get to say hi to him every once in a while, and he helps her with her seesaw activities and her sight words. So what is the student doing? What do you see with the student?
According to Wikipedia, Scooby-Doo is an American animated franchise.
Can you guys hear Alexa going off right now? According to Wikipedia, Scooby-Doo is, I don't know where that came from. Maybe one of my kids in the other room. Sorry. Let's see. Alexa, stop.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
So it looks like this student is reading.
It does. It does. Hold on. Let me just unplug this real quick.
Produced from 1969 to the present, as well as their derivative media.
All right. There you go. Welcome here. I'd like to pull my screen back sometimes. Welcome to my master bathroom here. Yes, Sam, he is reading, right? You can see a lot of concepts of print in there too, right? He has the book in there, right? He's got the title. He created the book. He's pointing to the words. You can see his pictures, right? And so you can see a lot going on there, right? And even like in the classroom, I can walk around as a teacher and I get little glimpses of students, right? But here I actually have this whole student's entire reading recorded. And honestly, I mean, there's a lot of computer skills in here. I don't know if you've ever done like stuff like this with students, but having students be able to even hold this up like a camera like this, point to the words in the camera, flip the pages, that's a lot of other skills. And are those important skills in the 21st century to have? Yes. Right, because I take you know, students every day we take a picture of our writing like this, because every day, and we still have some kids that's working on it. Where do you hold the picture in the camera, right? Those are things that they need nowadays. And so just the fact that, like, again, how do we build these tasks? And it's so great because it's off the screen. There's so much we can see here, just like this, right? It's so simple. All this kid is doing, and by the way, this was Halloween last year, and you can tell it was Halloween because you can see Batman in one in the right, and I was Fred Flintstone in the left. So we dress up every single day for Halloween. So all they're doing is what? All the student was doing is what? The same thing we do in class. They were taking their little, you know, cubes, they were stacking them together. And she's in here, you can see she's making the number 4. How did she make the number 4? With 3 yellow blocks and 1 blue box. She's practicing language. That's what I love, honestly, with this. And like, because my class is pretty much, you know, all English language learners. A lot of them right now, some of my parents were like, how, my kid only speaks Spanish, how are you going to teach them? Right? But already they're starting to use English, right? They're starting to develop these, and I'm starting to hear it because we're recording them. And all it is sometimes is just recording them like that, right? Capturing their voice. And it's just, that's all it does. Here's the other thing, right? We do like a mixed pair share in the classroom. Do all of our kids, are all of them always engaged with each other 100% of the time when they do that? No, right? It's good to have kids talk. I'm not saying don't do that, but then when every kid is recorded with themselves in the camera afterwards. So like maybe in the classroom, I'd have them like, we talk about it, maybe on the carpet, we talk about it, and then they go and record themselves. That'd be kind of like the final piece. And that way they get to see it, they get to re-record it, they get to listen to themselves. The coolest thing, they can even listen to their classmates, right? How do we get kids to interact right now in this time with each other? Well, if they're in a tool like Seesaw and they're recording, they can see each other's videos and they can comment on each other's videos. They can have an actual conversation. Again, just a few more, same kind of thing. I'm going to jump to this one. What does this look like now? Again, I want to show you, I'm going to pause this and I'll show you this activity I did for my students this Friday. And it's just so cute. how do we do these now? It's always this question of what do my students have at home? So this is the story of what? The Three Little Pigs, right? Check this out. I love this one. This is actually a triplet I had last year. It was one of three, and I had three of them in my class at one point, but I couldn't handle all three of the boys, so we had to transfer one of them to my neighbor's classroom. But you see Three Little Pigs, right? First house is made out of paper. Isn't that so cute? Second house is a cereal bowl, and the third house is blocks. So you can see that student is demonstrating understanding of the story, right? Because you can see the different materials he used. Just paper cereal bowl. He's using his action figures, right? And all he's doing is recording this with his computer. This is just a snippet of it, and there's no sound right here. But that's all he's doing is just using the toys that he has at home to retell the story. Most of our kids have some sort of toys at home, all right? But then I don't just stop it there. Now I can have them retell the story in a different way. Now this is a seesaw activity where he's just taking the little images and they're retelling the story with the little images. Because again, they're being able to do it in a different way. Maybe the kid doesn't have all the toys that they need, right? So this is another way they could do it. The other cool thing is like, it's interesting. This actually would be a lot harder to do in the classroom, right? This would be, because how many sets of stuff would I need? I need a bunch of toys. Kids would need to be able to rebuild this whole thing. Now, they could do it in groups, right? But just the fact sometimes kids at home, they have more space, they have more access. How many kids, if I had one big bad wolf, maybe they'd be all fighting over him, right? There's ways we could do it, but there's also interesting some of these things that that I didn't think about. All right, so I'm going to give pause and process, and I'm going to show you too. It's this whole idea of what do kids have at home. And if you want to unmute as I'm kind of doing this, that's great. All right. So you guys see my seesaw class now? This is my actually class this year. This is an activity I did on Friday. It was an IC color scavenger hunt. And so let me see here. I've looked at a few of these. So basically with this activity, what they had to do, I'll show you real quick, is we're working on sight words. You can see that these sight words and color words are up here. They have to drag them down here. And obviously they're scaffolding with the words in the back. Of course, the cool thing is the next time they can do this same activity, and I just remove the words at the bottom, and then they still have to drag the words for the top. So I can actually do this activity twice, right? And it's already scaffolded and I have all the templates. All right, anyways, they do this and then they drag it here. I see it. And then what do they do here? Step 2, take a picture. They go find something that's red and they take a picture. Step 3, they record it. So this is kind of this whole idea, right? We're doing a digital and analog task. The analog task is them just going and getting a toy, right? Going and finding something red. So I'll just show you a few here from my students. Let me see here. See how Genesis did here. Oh, I can already tell. Look, what did she forget at the end? A period, right? But I can still do those things. I can still notice those things. Let's see.
I see red. We gain control.
Right, so I can still see working on, for this student, like the one-to-one correspondence, right? Because you can see some of my students that will actually just point to each word, right?
I see an orange sight word.
And interesting, did you hear?
Orange.
You see how she said "and orange," right? That was interesting. I also looking at where she put the period, right? Just so much I can still tell, even from my students that are in there. Let's look at Alex here.
I see a red strawberry.
Good. So you could see that student. You could really see the one-to-one correspondence, right, with the arrow, right? These are kindergartners in their 6th week of school, by the way, right? And so when I look at this stuff, I can still say that they can still do it. Is all students doing it like this? No, right? They're not. Some of them. All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
You guys just saw me. Obviously, I was like, oh, did my internet just crash? I don't know what point you lost me, but that's the first time that's happened on me. All right, I'm back. You guys are good? You guys can see my screen again?
Mhm.
All right.
spoon.
Okay, let's go here. This is Eileen, and so she's like, honestly, she doesn't speak like very much English at all.
I see a red spoon.
I see a red spoon.
Right? You can hear it in the background, right? Obviously, there's Dad. I got to give it to Dad. It's hard for him. I've talked to him about it. It's hard, right? So I can see, and it just when I see this, like, look, it's okay.
I see jello.
And that's the other thing is in my classroom, I would have students that would struggle in the classroom, right? And I feel like sometimes we just expect all the students to do everything correctly, and we just need to remember that too, right? Like my little boy Juan last year, that just, I think about him, and so these are just, again, some of the bright spots in there. Do you guys like that? Was that good to see? Again, and you can see the whole point is it's digital and analog, right? It's that we're overlapping the two, even if it's just them taking a picture. But how fun is that for them to every color? Because we're studying weather in the rainbow next week. Again, that's something they can look. Hey, look outside. What's the weather like today? It's something they can start noticing. When we're doing, how is a rainbow formed? Rainbows are sun and water. You know what we did on Friday? Check this out. This is what we did on Friday. What is this? Watercolor, right? We're doing digital and we're doing analog. What did we write here, right? Sun, a great CVC word, right? What did we write here? Water. Again, there's language in here. 5 raindrops. We had to draw all of these individual lines with the curves. We can count lines. We can count colors. There's lots of shapes in here, right? And students, they need that. Do we do this every day? No, right? But I feel like they still really need it's good, right? We're talking about how do we reach students social emotionally by getting them to be able to do some of these skills. So there you have it. All right, good. Any more questions? I'm looking at time. We got one more thing here, and I think we got about 20 minutes, so we're pretty good. And now my coffee. There you go. How we doing? Let me bring up the chat.
Great. Yeah, everybody's loving it, Ben. Great job.
Yeah, so I got all my lessons are on Seesaw right now. Everything I do, I publish to my Seesaw. All of my lessons have instruction built into it as well. And so you can access that from coachben.org as well. But everything I do, I publish on Seesaw, and guess how much it costs? You'll never guess. I make millions of dollars from it. It's just free. Isn't that awesome? It's free. You can have it. You can also find a lot of my stuff at coachben.org. All right. So big ideas for today. Number 1, what's our first big idea? And even if you have mute, you can say it out loud. I tell my students right that, right? What's the first big idea? It's not about digital versus analog, right? It's about both of them, right? Second big idea. 3D. Yep, go ahead, Terry.
3D tasks.
Yes, 3D tasks, right? 3D tasks. So what's this third big idea? Well, what do we need to get out right now, right? Our handy dandy notebook, right? We got our handy dandy notebook. Let me see here. All right. Okay, here we go. So the third one, I'm going to draw a little mountain, and maybe you know what it is. And even I forget this sometimes. I'm very grateful for one of my colleagues that I'm able to, and you'll see here in a second, but it's just nice whenever you have a colleague that you can really collaborate with at the grade level. I just think it makes such a big difference. And over the years, I've had colleagues that I've been really good. Some of my colleagues have been just okay, but definitely it's helpful. So this last one, it's high expectations, even now. I'm going to tell you again. I'm going to show you a little story. Tell you a little story. High expectations. So we got digital versus analog. We got our 3D tasks and having high expectations. Let me get it back over here to my other screen. Okay. All right. So I'm going to tell you a story about my colleague that I work with, and she is actually a little bit lesser known Kinder Rocket, but she is definitely part of the Kinder Rocket crew, and it's cool because now if you actually see our activities, you now see her little Kinder Rocket picture as well. Her name's Yesenia, and I believe she's in her 5th year of teaching now, and she works next door. You can see. Her sticker is actually just a little bit different than my sticker, which is awesome. You can see her sticker has the rainbow on it, right? My sticker doesn't. I had actually somebody that asked me this year, another kindergarten teacher up in the Bay Area, said, "Hey, can I use your Kinder Rockets thing?" I said, "Sure. Here's all the logo stuff. I'd love to see your own version of it." So it's all. If anybody ever wants to be a Kinder Rocket, It's all for you. It's all there for you. Anyways, this whole idea of high expectations. So I don't know about you, but when we first went into remote instruction, this whole idea of getting kindergartners in a Google Meet, like I had 28 kindergartners and getting them all in a Google Meet, I was like, that's how I felt. Like, did you feel maybe that way too when you first had to try to transition your students? Probably at any grade level, I'm sure. But I was like, oh my goodness, how are we going to do this? You know, I could give them Seesaw activities. That's easy. I can get them connected in Seesaw. I can understand that part. But so anyways, I was talking to my partner and she was like saying that she was like, oh yeah. So yesterday I got my kids in a Google Meet. I'm like, what did you do? She's like, yeah, I got my kids in a Google Meet. And she's like, I made this little presentation. I sent it home to all my parents. It kind of walks through like, you know, what they need to click on. And I got them all in a Google Meet. And so just the fact that, you know, sometimes it's just seeing it, right? That's all we need to do is seeing it's possible. And then once we see it's possible, we know it's possible, right? But it's just this whole idea like that, you know, I could do it. All right, she did it. I'm going to figure out how to do it. I'm going to start messaging parents. I'm going to start to try to get kids connected. In the beginning, it wasn't all of them, right? But it's just this whole idea that kids can do it, right? Kids can do it. And so here's some just wisdom that I've kind of learned from Miss Gutierrez on in general, right? Number one, I think, and a lot of us do this, but some of them I just tweaking them a little, I guess, even for myself, believing in your students, right? If you believe in your students that they can do it, right? They can do it. You know what? Right now they can learn this. Yes, they can, right? If I teach it to them and I have those high expectations with, you know, some strong teaching, they can do it for sure. We believe in them. Number two, care about your students and families. A lot of us are really, really good. And she does. I always forget it, Brian. I'm going to have to look it up, her Twitter account. I think it's Kind Rainbows. She doesn't use Twitter a lot, but I'm trying to encourage her more. Kind Rainbows, I think. So number two, a lot of us are good at caring about students, but even caring about families, right? Especially now, right? Our families are our co-teachers, regardless of the grade, right? I was having this conversation with my second grade son, who his learning space is right here behind me. I don't know if you can see it. And I'm like, he's like, well, my teacher only asked for, 4 sentences or 2 sentences. I'm like, well, you need to write a complete paragraph. And so I'm your teacher too, because I'm your at-home teacher. And it's really true, right? We got to have these relationships. And so how do we show our families, right? If our families know that we're supporting their students or that we're supporting them, there's so much more that, that we can do, I think, together. And number 3, just this whole idea of just having high expectations, right? High expectations. And this is, I think, for every grade level. If we give them, again, they can do it. The kindergartners, they can do it. There's some amazing things they can do. And sometimes as adults, it's us, holding them back. So just, I feel like kind of keeping those things in mind have really been helpful for me. All right. So pausing and processing for that section. It's not a whole lot to it. Have high expectations. And again, sometimes those change a little bit right now as to what they can, as to how we do them, but I think they should still be there. So pausing, processing, getting your coffee, your tea. And let me do this real quick, Brian. Let me look up, I think it's Kind Rainbows.
Oh, and Ben, will this presentation be on your presentations page from your website?
It is. I think it's on there. I think I hope I updated it today correctly. So I think I put it on the top.
Is it the K-2 Can-2?
Yep. It's
keynote?
Oh, maybe let's see. Oh, you know what? Here's my problem. You know what? Here's this button. You see
I know,
it?
I forget that too.
Boom. I did the last step except hit the publish, right? There it is.
Good job.
Yeah, and here's Yesenia's. This is Yesenia. This is my other. You can see her. You can always give her a shout out. If you're on Twitter today, just make sure to tag her, say something to her, and just say, "Great job, Yesenia." And then I can. I'm gonna actually meet with her at 11 o'clock so we can plan for our week because we co-create a lot of our activities. So this is again our big ideas for today, right? Is it's not about digital versus analog. We got to use both of them, even now, right? Even nowadays, right? I have my students. One of the things I was able to get them at home is just like a folder, with these sheet protectors in here, right? And so it's just name right now, some capital letters, some lowercase letters, being able to write to 10, and this this kind of math rep thing, number of the day thing. And so even now, right, I got to get them doing, they still need to write at home, right? They can still do things like this. But again, this whole idea of three-dimensional tests, like the IC, right? How can we get kids trying to be engaged on not just what's up here, but also is what's down here, right? Getting them to understand that I don't have to do everything on my screen. I can use my other tools, right? Even then, like, think about if they had an actual book that they were highlighting and then they were typing their essay for like some of the older kids on their screen, right? Those are some good skills to practice. You know, we did, a lot of us had in college, we were forced to do, maybe if you were in college around the same time, that's how we had to do it, right? Because a lot of our books were books, right? And then we had to word process them. And I just think it just having those skills are important regardless, even when we move into the future. And finally, this whole idea, we have to have high expectations, right? If we provide support, they can do it, right? If we provide support, they can do it. Again, those are my big ideas for today. We have about 10 more minutes left. If you guys want to kind of chat for a little bit, if you want to talk for a little bit, if you want to ask any questions, now's the time. If you have anything like particular questions too about anything that has to do with more remote learning, what I'll kind of do is I'll do two things actually here. Number one, I'm going to go to the last slide. I think most of you already have my contact information, but this is one thing again where you can get my stuff. I don't know, did I share this Facebook page? I don't think I ever did. Facebook, I just found it an interesting way to communicate with parents.
I posted it in the chat, but go ahead and post it again because we've had about 3 people come a little bit later, and everything's being recorded. And I tried to put everything I could in the chat so that you can get lots of links to everything.
This is all my contact information. You can see here ways to get a hold of me. If you email me, I will get back to you hopefully sooner than later. Sometimes it takes later, sometimes it takes sooner. You can get all this stuff at coachben.org. I have a ton of Seesaw stuff, a ton of other stuff on there as well. And it's all free. If you ever see any of my stuff that's being sold, then it's being sold by somebody else and not me. And with that, if you get any questions you want, anything you want to see particularly as well. It was nice to be with you guys on this Saturday morning. Big kudos for you guys being here. Big shout out to the joint. I love it. This is a joint Q effort from both organizations. I'll put this back up here so you can see all the hashtags and stuff.
I have a question, Ben.
Please, Terry.
When we start going back to class, is your school district doing the hybrid model, or what will you guys be doing for kinder?
Well, right now, from my understanding, it will be a little bit of a hybrid model, and we'll have 4 different cohorts. I'm not sure. I'm not even looking that far ahead because, I mean, there's a lot of people that are very skeptical in our county when we're going to go back, how long we're not going to be in there. And part of it is just because, you know, the one of the areas I live in is just so densely populated here in Salinas that that it's you know, and plus we have all our farm workers here, as I know some of you other areas. So people are very skeptical when we're going to go back in our area. So I'm just not planning that far ahead. Okay. Yes, I do. Honestly, right now, my thing is Seesaw. And I use a lot of it, Monique. And let me bring it back up here. Let me get my page. Sorry. I just feel like right now less is more. And so right now I'm kind of putting all my eggs here. I'm slowly transitioning to my students into some other apps, right? Like that they could use, because we do have some other things available. But I feel like, I mean, my kids right now, and I really try to spiral my activities. A lot of my kids have some really good skills, and I have some pretty overall, some pretty good completion rates. My completion rates for Friday are always a little bit less because it's a Friday, right? But usually if you go back, like if I go back to example Monday, you can see here, if I go back to Monday, right, you can see just a few kids haven't done it, right? And so that's typically about it for me. About 20 to 23 kids will usually complete it. But you can see, like, when you look at these activities, just, again, there's just so much language that's being built in here. So as far as kids starting to talk, right, some of my kids, as I said, because the kids can see each other's work in here, and one of the things that I've mostly done in this classroom is most of the information is pretty good as far as, like I removed all the last names just so you guys know, protecting my students, right? The only thing sometimes you'll see is a parent's first name and last name, but even then, so that's something I got to kind of be a little careful of. But you can see here that kids can actually comment on each other's. And so I have some kids that are actually that will start, they just click the comment and they'll start commenting on each other. Some of them start saying hi to each other. The other things that I've noticed some of them do, and this is, it's hard, right, for this to build some of these things. Like this little boy, he's pretty cute. This little boy, he'll come here. He'll do.
Hi, Kinder Rockets. And we're gonna talk about my pictures. So
Basically it's just him kind of recording and doing it like, and I always think to myself, do I need this in my classroom? Well, maybe if he did 10 videos, am I going to publish all of them? No. I have one kid that just does these dance videos and I don't publish any of them, right? But he's just talking. I can see this kid wants to try to like start reaching out. He wants to talk to other kids. So I publish it in there. And so that's one thing obviously we're working on. I'm working on my kindergartners now. The next skill, like things like how do I teach them to comment with each other and access those comments? So for me, like I'd rather get them really, really good at this one tool first before I start layering on other tools, just because there's so much I can do with this, right? And so things like my district's like, I want them to be able to do Lexia. And like, I'm sure nobody in my district's going to record it. Sure, I think that Lexia is not necessarily a horrible thing, but I'm not going to start doing that for the second trimester, right? Some of my kids are already on it because it's in the portal. Great, parents. If you want to get your kids on this right now, right. But I also have some kids that just go to babysitters and literally maybe another kid helps them get logged on. And I got to think about them too. And so some of it is just kind of scaffolding for this. And so a lot of this is just in here, right? And just kind of being able to, again, just use this tool. But as I said, I just feel like, I mean, just even looking at this little, I just love this activity. Just seeing them record it, seeing them with their pictures, seeing them with their smiles, right? And then I'll play it for the kids, right? And the other things we do is like every day, just trying to build community, right? And shout out to Sam, because I feel like whenever I think of puppets, I actually think of him. But like every day, like we do, yeah, I know, right? People are like, Ben, you use a lot of puppets. And I was like, well, there's people that were using puppets way before, and Sam makes his own puppets. So someday, Sam, I'm going to like, well, I want to, anyways, we'll talk. But just like every day, things like to build community, I'll get the puppets out. Yeah. Hey, yeah. How you doing, buddy? My name's Joshua. Right. And just the fact that, right, I get my
hey, Josh.
yeah, how you doing? And it's so engaging. It's so amazing. The kids will listen to the puppet when the puppet's talking. They're so much quieter, right?
So much quieter. And they don't even get my jokes.
I know. They don't mostly, but it's all right. Yeah, just the fact. I mean, look at how many of you had a smile on your face when that happened right there, right? And so like just things like building community. So every day I just start out, even if it's just this way. Like I'll get this little bell and I'll be like, "Hi, Stacy." "Hello, Stacy." "Hi, Brian." "Hi, Brian." And it allows all the kids have their mute. Well, and this is how we start. Everybody get, show me your slow wave. Show me your fast wave. Show me your finger wave.
The energy right now is palpable, but I've got to cut us off because I've got to download the video.
All right. I was sorry. I was looking at, I thought we had 2 more minutes, but I'll wrap it up here.
But, I probably have to stop the recording. Do you want to, I can stop the recording and you can continue if you want.
Sure. That's fine.
There you go. Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Anyways, it's just the whole thing about getting, at least kids are seeing each other. They're saying hi to each other. I figure at least if I could say every kid's name, if I can have every kid say every kid's name at the beginning and end of the day, right? At least we're still building some of those, right? I do still have kids that say like, oh, like some of their comments, Sefji, do you remember me from last year? I miss you, right? I miss playing with you. So, I mean, that's all we can do. Want the kids to get really good at this. So
this is fantastic. Thank you so much.